Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show, coming at you live from Ogden once again. Happy to be here in O-Town twice this week, making the trip up here. This time we're on Riverdale Road at Kia, Wasatch Front Kia, 770 Riverdale Road. Incredible deals going on right now on the Kia K5, $269 a month. The K4, $219 a month. The Sport is $279 a month. The Kia Sorento, $319 a month. That's actually, my neighbor just got one of those Sorentos. Phenomenal car. I'm also the proud driver of a Kia. These are excellent. If you have yet to test drive a Kia, if you haven't been out here, checked out the inventory at Wasatch Front Kia, please come stop by today. I do have Braza Grill gift certificates for anyone who stops by, at least while supplies last, as we say in the business. So 770 Riverdale Road, come on by, say hello, check out the incredible deals they've got going on, test drive one of the great cars, trucks, well, I guess not trucks, cars, vans, or SUVs here on the Kia lot. And, say hello. I'll hook you up. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you folks out there. James Peterson, back in our Broadway studios, is producing today. James, have you already done your husbandly duties on Valentine's Day? Have you already gotten the flowers? Did you get the card? Have you delivered the chocolates, or is that going to be an after-work sort of situation?
It'll be after work, but I have all the things. But we delivered after work. We both worked, so it didn't make a ton of sense to do it in the morning. So.
All right, I like that. I made I don't know if it was a veteran move or if it was a faux pas, but trying to find sitters and reservations on Valentine's Day, not the easiest thing. So I opted to do it last night. Got a sitter to come over and took my wife out for dinner, the sort of a Valentine's situation, and it was great. Restaurant was not crowded. There was a plethora of tables and didn't have to wait and all that stuff. So I felt like it was a good idea, but 877-353-0700, is that a good move or a bad move? Because it's Valentine's Day, but it's not actually Valentine's Day. So I don't know, especially the fair sex. If any of the ladies out there are listening, was that a good move or not to just take the path of least resistance on Valentine's Day? Or is it better to have shown the forethought to try to get a reservation, I don't know, not yesterday? Anyway, happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. I have a corny Twitter poll up in honor of Valentine's Day, checking the pulse of everyone's love for college sports right now. We've talked about it so much over the weeks and months and really now years of the changing college sports landscape. Is it affecting the way, we talked about people renewing their season tickets or not being willing to renew their season tickets. We talked about people, wanting to sacrifice the time that it takes to get up to games, et cetera. We talked about the spring situation, the spring football situation, and the communication or lack thereof, and the accessibility or lack thereof. So as all this stuff combines to affect, or maybe not affect, your love of college sports, especially at the University of Utah. We're the home of the Utes, obviously, here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Checking in on the pulse. Are you still married to the game? This is the Twitter poll. Are you still married to the game? Are you questioning your commitment? Is it love on the rocks? Or are you doomed? Is the breakup imminent with college sports and you, and probably more importantly, your pocketbook? Because that sometimes makes the decision for everyone. Where are you at on this right now, James? Oh, okay. James might be doing something else. Again,
my bad. I was adjusting something in the other room. Hit me with it again.
The Twitter poll. Your love of college sports right now, football and basketball primarily, knowing all the factors, the transfer portal, NIL, rising ticket costs, et cetera, coaches playing everything a little closer to the vest, whatever it is. Are you still married to the game? Are you questioning your commitment? Is it love on the rocks, or is it a breakup imminent for you when it comes to college sports?
I'm still married to it, and that's not to say that I like all like all of it, or the lack of direction in a lot of these things, because I think a lot of people say the direction of the game's not very good. I'm like, well, it would be fine if there was some kind of direction with when it comes to NIL guidelines and transfer portal guidelines and other things like that have caused massive changes to the landscape of college athletics, college football in particular. So that's why I say lack of direction is troubling, but I'm still married to the game. I still love what I see on Saturdays. I still feel like even if there's lots of guys transferring in and out every year on your favorite team, I still feel like I have a connection, enough of a connection to that team, and know the people, know the players and coaches well enough to really feel, like I said, that connection to my favorite team. So I'm still married to the game, while not completely happy with everything about it.
Yeah, I mean, that I probably should have found a way to put that nuance into the Twitter poll, because yes, look, for me, college sports, it's till death do us part. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Nothing is going to take me away from my love of college sports, but there is some adjusting that has to be done. The same way that my wife has to adjust to the fact that when she married me, I was 205 pounds, and now I'm not that, right? Like, you don't necessarily love all the changes, but you have to choose those changes every single day. And I will say this, especially with respect to Utah football and the outlook for Utah basketball, one of the changes that has people really up in arms and has people not loving the direction of college football especially and college basketball especially is the transfer portal, right? But if you focus that particular aspect of the changes on Utah, it's actually more room for optimism and more room for excitement than it is anything that would detract from your hopes for Utah sports, right? Like, if you're BYU right now, who's got a lot of continuity on their football roster, you probably don't love what could happen in the transfer portal. Right now, you're loving that you got a couple of really good players, including one of Utah's best players. So you like that. If you're Utah, you're probably feeling, if you're a Utah fan, you're probably feeling a little bit of a mixed bag of emotions here as it pertains to your love of Utah football, especially with the transfer portal. But think of if the transfer portal did not exist right now, like this version of the transfer portal, how worried you would be about the quarterback situation at the University of Utah. How much fretting there would be over the upcoming season on the offense at the you would have an empty running back room. Excuse me. You'd have an empty running back room. You would have no Cam Rising coming back. You'd have Isaac Wilson as your presumed starter at the quarterback position, who would be you'd be focused on massive, massive improvement and growth there. And your offensive line would be in pretty much the same situation. Your wide receiver room, again, you'd be a little bit thinner there. Tight end, you'd be in pretty much the same situation. But when you're talking about the offense, yes, I know losing Keanu Tanuvasa was not easy. Losing Cam Calhoun, I don't think is going to end up being that big of a deal. But these changes that oftentimes we say, oh, that's a bad thing. On balance, that transfer portal has been an advantage for Utah. It's been a good thing for Utah very specifically. So when I say how was it affected, how have the changes affected your love of the game, I don't just want you to focus on the negative side of things. I'm still married to it. I'm going to stay married to it, like I said, till death do us part, because especially in Utah's case, it makes it more interesting and a more hopeful outlook for this 2025 season that's coming.
Yeah, and I think marriage is the right analogy for it, based on that nuance that I was talking about. How there's certainly things to complain about. There's certainly things that you don't like about it, but that doesn't change your commitment to your fandom of the game, right? Just like in marriage or a long-term romantic relationship, there doesn't mean you like everything about it or like everything about the person you're committed to.
Whoa, James, are you saying you don't like every single thing about your wife?
Oh, no. I hope she's not listening.
That's not what you're trying to say, right?
I hope she's not listening. No, but if we're being serious, there are some things that you don't necessarily like about your partner. Just like there are things about college football and other sports that we don't really like, but we still love it enough to be committed to that fandom, right? So I think marriage is the right analogy for this.
At Real OC Sports is how you participate in the Twitter poll. You can also give us your feedback at 877-353-0700.
And you can put me on blast for admitting that there are things I don't like about my wife. Sure, you can do that. If you want to be like OC, you can. Fine.
I do so very tongue in cheek, very facetiously. James, I can say this: if James's wife is listening, James behind the scenes when there's no microphone on is constantly talking about his wife.
It's probably it's probably a little to the point where it's a little bit annoying. That's how much I talk about her. But yeah,
But
there you go.
Very much in love, and that's a good thing, especially on Valentine's Day. So on Valentine's Day, we're checking your pulse on your love of college sports specifically, and maybe we can extend it to the pro sports game right now. It feels like even if folks wanted to say to me, "Oh no, I don't like pro sports as much as I used to," like the ratings and the revenue for pro sports would tell me you're lying. So it's less of a compelling question for me to throw it out there in respect to pro sports. I know there's some things people don't like about the NBA because of how political things got, especially for a little while, and you can say that the NHL ratings are going down. There was a big article a couple weeks about how dire that circumstance was for the NHL. Yet you tune in this morning, you tune in to talk radio this morning. USA's big victory in the Four Nations Challenge. This is an all-star break, people. Like, nobody cares about all-star games, and the NHL did something that got everybody excited. You put the Chuck brothers on the ice against a foreign nation, put them together, and all of a sudden hockey fans are excited again. So I'm not even gonna entertain the idea that the love of sports is being affected. Although we do have more options, and you can distribute your time and your money to various forms of entertainment now outside of sports in a way that wasn't always the case a couple decades ago. But I think it's pretty healthy. And right now, 50% of people are saying they're still married to the game in college sports. Almost 40% say they're questioning commitment. But a combined about 11% between love on the rocks and breakup imminent. Only 2.5% are ready to break up with college sports, which I thought maybe we'd get some more dramatic responses than that. I'm encouraged here. We do have a jam-packed show today at Wasatch Front Kia. Again, Braza gift cards to give away. Great deals happening at the dealership at 770 West Riverdale Road. Probably more importantly for all of you, if you're not going to have a chance to make it up here, Bill Riley's going to join us in just a few minutes, probably 3-4 minutes here. We've got Brogan Houston coming from the Deseret News, Utah Hockey Club insider. We'll talk about this team, talk about the Four Nations break, talk about the Clayton Keller snub. We haven't checked in with Brogan Houston yet. Utah head basketball coach Craig Smith is going to join us at 12:30, and Jared Calhoun from Utah State is going to join us at 1. So there's a lot of stuff that we have a chance to get into. Utah Jazz in action last night as well. They came back down to earth a little bit. No Walker Kessler playing. A bit of a thumb situation. It looked like Clippers got the win. And, again, I belabor the point. It's a weird thing, but that's what you're rooting for. It's kind of like the ideal week. The L.A. team that you actually hate, the Jazz do you a favor and get a win over them. And then the other L.A. team, you're like, yeah, okay, go ahead and lose to the Clippers.
That being said, you're totally right about the teams. But that being said, there is no love lost on this Valentine's Day for James Harden around here. After not that long ago, when in the Donovan Mitchell era, the Rockets knocking the Jazz out of the playoffs a couple years in a row. And the Clippers, I mean, no one's going to forget the way that series ended in 2021, a year that people around here thought the Jazz had a title contender. So, yeah, I'm not sure that there's a ton of love lost for the Clippers either because of recent history of some of the players in the team, but you're right. Like, certainly way more apathy about the Clippers than there is the Lakers around here.
James Harden is one of those guys, one of those players in pro sports, certainly in the NBA, that you just like. It's so hard to root for that guy. If he's not on your team, and maybe even if he is on your team, James Harden, basically since he left Oklahoma City, to me is one of these dudes where I'm just like, I can't root for a guy that has never played a lick of defense in his life and is constantly flopping, constantly a problem with referees. Like, James Harden is one of those guys. Cannot find any love for him, even on a Valentine's Day. And I think you're right, James. I think that Utah Jazz fans, for the most part, feel that way about him. Even to the point, I think, for some, and maybe put me in this category, where his ability, that begrudging respect, that begrudging, admiration you can have for some players that people found a way to have for Kobe, etc., can't find it for people like James Harden. I don't know why. Or maybe I do know why. Anyway, as promised, Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, joining us here on the Sean O'Connell Show, right on the dot at 11:15. Bill, welcome. How are you?
Sean, I'm good. Are you sick?
Yeah, man. It's those little germ factories brought home from some bugs from school, and I've been fighting against it, but my body is now capitulating. Unfortunately, might be a long weekend.
Those little petri dishes will do that to you.
Yeah, it's but we're having fun up here at Wasatch Front Kia. We're all right. It's just a little congestion. The voice, it sounds worse than it feels, which
okay, good.
Well, good except when you're a radio host for a living. That's not ideal. But in any case, you, by the way, the pipes. Is it your immune system that's great? Have you just built up? I can't even recall a time where on a game broadcast I've heard a substandard Bill Riley because of a little sickness.
Let's not speak anything into existence here, Sean O'Connell, but yeah, the immune system's pretty good. There have been times where I've battled congestion, a little bit of a sore throat, but I don't think I've ever missed a broadcast, fingers crossed, due to any kind of illness.
Well, my apologies for putting that juju out into the universe. We fight against it. We reject all sicknesses on the vocal cords of Bill Riley. All right, before we get into Running Utes basketball, which you're on those duties again tomorrow against your own alma mater, interestingly enough, you as a Chiefs fan probably did not have the best Super Bowl Sunday. Your thoughts on how that game played out?
Bad offensive line play. If you can't block up front, it's going to hurt you, and that's really what it was. I think your buddy Jeff Schwartz would make it pretty succinct like that, too. Yeah, they were bad at left tackle. They were somewhat bad at right tackle. They were really bad at right guard. And Philadelphia was really good. So, they earned it. There was no doubt in that one. There was nothing, well, maybe if this or that. Philadelphia was the better team. So that was what it was. But there are no complaints here. The dynasty is not done. The team is not bad all of a sudden. They've reached 4 Super Bowls in, 6 years, 5 and 6 years, 4, whatever it is, and won 3. So as a sports fan, you cannot complain. You have a 5 to 7 year window before you're allowed to bitch and moan when your team's won championships.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. That's the reasonable response here. And I also think you're right that, the window's not all the way closed. Now, they're going to have to do some roster evaluation and maybe move some things around. But is there any reason to believe that the Chiefs won't stay in this competitive window as long as they've got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, I mean, competitive for sure. I mean, you'd be silly to think no competitive. Now, can they be the best team in the AFC? We'll see. But again, they're not that far off. They made the Super Bowl. Let's not forget that. They beat the Buffalo Bills. They got to the Super Bowl. They were deficient up front. They've got to fix that. They're probably going to lose their right guard. Trey Smith's probably going to cash big bucks to go elsewhere. And maybe Kingsley Suamataia, the kid they drafted out of BYU, slides into that right guard spot. I don't think he's a tackle. I think that's very apparent. But it's fixable, sure. And when you've got the best quarterback in the game, you're always going to be in it. But, yeah, they've got to reevaluate, reconfigure a little bit. And like everybody, they've got to draft well.
one of the big conversations post Super Bowl has been, well, now what's going to happen with Travis Kelce? I mean, he's got the media world laid out in front of him. If he decides to retire, he will be on a broadcast. He'll be on an analyst desk. He'll continue the podcasting situation. I don't know, maybe make cameo appearances at the next Eras tour, whatever. What do you think is going to happen with Travis Kelce?
I think he's going to retire. I think if you're talking about retiring, your mind's already on retiring. And if your mind's on retiring, you should probably go. He's got nothing left to prove. First ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest tight end in history, 3 Super Bowls to his name. I don't think he's got – I mean, if he decides he wants to come back, that's fine. He's not the same player he was, but he's still a valuable piece. He had 97 catches this year. He's still a great target. He could still be a valuable part of the offense, but he's not a number 1 or a number 2 weapon anymore. But if he wants to come back, I don't have any problem with it. I just think when the conversation's there and it's being floated out publicly and you don't make a definitive decision, if you're thinking that hard about it, I think you're probably going to retire. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utes running Utes in action tomorrow against Kansas. We'll get to that, but we got the email this week, Bill. A couple emails actually from Utah. One about the season ticket renewals, and then one about the spring football schedule, the plan. It'll be Easter weekend, the Saturday of Easter weekend, that you've got your spring football showcase, the 22 Forever game. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, you got 15 practices between March 20th and that practice date. What needs to be accomplished for Utah football in this spring camp? Feels like one with more import even than average.
Well, I think you've got to kind of reset your mindset, and I don't say reset the culture, but I think you have to reset just a little bit after a 5-7 season and get guys back to the mentality that got them to where they were when they were winning conference championships, competing for conference championships and things like that. I think that's one thing. I mean, I don't think that's a big reset, but it's like, okay, guys, and you brought in some new offensive coaches, so I think there's going to be some new life and some new blood in that offensive meeting room. But I think the other big thing is installing this new offense and getting people all on the same page with that offense and figuring out where that is. I don't think defensively they have a lot of work to do. There'll be some new faces in new places this year on defense, but I think the majority of the spring is going to be focused on installing Jason Beck's new offense. But I think there's hey, guys, and I'm sure they've had it in some of their off-season meetings already, let's get our mindset back to where we were winning championships. Last year was a little bit of a dip. The year before was a little bit too, but 8-4 and 5-7 are 2 different records. So I think the other message, Sean, is we weren't very far off. We weren't far off from being there, but let's get our minds right and focus in the right direction. And I think the talent that we have now is probably going to get us there.
We had an opportunity to catch up with Coach Witt, and it was great for me to hear. I asked him why he came back for season 21, and part of his answer was, look, my competitive nature doesn't allow me to walk away. I'm paraphrasing here. Doesn't allow me to walk away on what happened last year. And obviously that was a conversation all of us had in private, all of us had on the air, and kind of, I guess, waited for Kyle Whittingham to confirm that actually factored into the discussion. I appreciated his candor in that regard because it just confirms that he's still got that same fire that we have come to know him for. Like he's just too competitive as a human being to walk away on a sour season.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that if one of the reasons he came back were, one, you don't want to go out on that note, but two, anybody that knows Kyle knows he's competitive as can be. And I think he looked at what happened last year too, Sean, and said, hey, we made some mistakes. We weren't as good as we needed to be. The injuries got us again, but we still weren't very far off being one of the best teams in the Big 12 Conference. They were, but they weren't. I mean, again, you are what your record says you are. But I think he looks at it, and I think, bringing in a new offensive staff, some new players, some of that stuff, that can kind of rejuvenate everybody and kind of get some new blood and some new thoughts and some new things in the meeting room. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise when he decided he wanted to come back. It didn't surprise me, and to hear that competitive fire and that competitive heartbeat too, that's like the least surprising thing of the Kyle Whittingham return.
So he did mention in the same conversation that the new offense, not going to be a lot of 12 personnel, not going to be a lot of 13 personnel. It'll be one tight end or zero in a lot of cases. And I don't have any real gripe with that, except when you got a new offense, how much, or a new defense, which of course at Utah you don't have a new defense, but in the big picture of football, as someone who's been observing it for years and years and years, how much does a team need to cater to its personnel versus just making sure it plays its system, especially when there's a new system being installed?
Well, I think you always have to play to what your strengths and what your personnel is. But, again, who's the proven tight end in that tight end room? Carson Ryan's gone. Brant Keithy's gone. I think you've got one really proven tight end. That's Landon King. You brought in a bunch of wide receivers. You have to go with, if you're going to make that change, you're going to have to go with what your coordinator and your quarterback feel most comfortable playing. Those are the two guys that have to feel most comfortable. I think everybody else can adjust around that. I don't think the offensive line, which they invested heavily in, cares a whole lot whether it's 12 personnel, 13 personnel, or 11 personnel. They're going to be blocking up front. But I think you've got to play to that strength as much as possible.
Bill Riley for another minute or two here. The voice of the Utes will be running Utes basketball at home at the Huntsman Center against a really solid Kansas team that Bill knows a thing or two about, the University of Kansas. Biggest challenge in this one for Craig Smith and company?
Well, you've got to rebound because Kansas is an exceptional rebounding team, and they're an exceptional offensive basketball team, too. You don't want to give them second chances. That's what cost them ultimately in the Cincinnati game. They were markedly better on turnover, Sean, but Cincinnati out-rebounded them, and Cincinnati's not a great rebounding team, and those second chances ended up giving them more points. So I think the first thing they've got to be really good at tomorrow against a team that's very athletic and big. I mean, they've got a K.J. Adams who's a super exceptional athlete who can jump and rebound, but they've got a true center in Hunter Dickinson who's 7'1" and 265 pounds. He's enormous and a tremendous rebounder. So Utah's got to be good on both the defensive glass, but also, getting back in transition because if they miss a shot on the offensive end, they're going to Kansas will get out and run. So rebound defensively and get back in transition to me are two huge things for the Utes tomorrow against the Jayhawks.
The NCAA tournament feels like it's out of reach unless huge surprises happen during the Big 12 tournament for this team. A postseason berth in the NIT or something of that regard. Is that going to be enough for Utah basketball this year to build some positive momentum moving forward?
We'll see how the season plays. There's still basketball to be played. You can get hot in February, make a little run in March. I think what you want to see in the first year in a conference is did the team and the program get better? And I don't think that you can make that judgment till the season's over. So I think you want to see how things play out and go from there. Remember, they were picked 16th in the Big 12, fairly low expectations, but I just want to see how it plays out and see how the whole season kind of encapsulates itself, if that makes sense.
Last thing before I let you go, you obviously spent your own collegiate studies at the University of Kansas. Anyone in like the traveling contingent, whether it's in the basketball front, maybe it's during football when they got more people coming, is there anyone that you know from your school days who's still at Kansas, maybe working, that you're going to cross paths with?
Not that I know are coming. One of my very good friends helps run what they call the Williams Fund, which is their equivalent of the Crimson Club. But that's about it. I don't know anybody really on the basketball staff. I've been gone 32 years, Sean, so it's not like I graduated last week and my buddies are still hanging out at the Wheel and Louise's downtown in Lawrence. So I know people in the department. I know their broadcasters. Greg Gurley, who does the color for them, is a player. He played when I was in school. We overlapped a little bit. But at the end of the day, no, I don't have many ties to my alma mater anymore.
Well, he's the voice of the Utes, and we'll keep it that way. Have a great call this weekend. Appreciate your time as always.
Take lots of zinc, lots of fluids, and get better, Sean.
Yeah, I'll sound at least 4% better by Monday. The thing is, me at 100%, I don't know if I sound much better than this. So, but we'll do our best.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
Bill Riley, go up to the Huntsman Center, UtahTickets.com. Tickets are available for your Runnin' Utes versus the Kansas Jayhawks. Of course, in about an hour, we're going to catch up with the Runnin' Utes head basketball coach, Craig Smith, who's given us some time today. We're looking forward to that conversation as well. We are at Wasatch Front Kia. You've heard the commercials, Kia, Wasatch Front Kia. We're on Riverdale Road. They've got incredible deals on leases right now, $279 a month for 36 months on the Kia Sportage, $319 a month for the Kia Sorrento. That's the LX all-wheel drive. So, I mean, they're hooking you up. Come out, test drive, and if you do, I'm going to give you some Braza Grill gift certificates. I've got $20 gift certificates to Braza Grill, so you can go get yourself a little churrascaria and, drive a nice car, park yourself in the parking lot, walk inside, get the meat sweats, eating a bunch of Brazilian steak and sausage, and then jump back in your Kia, go about your business. Pretty good recipe. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there listening. Reminder, by the way, if you need kind of a last-minute gift situation, we're up here in Ogden, right around the corner from where we're at in Riverdale Road. You've got a bunch of really, really good spots, but Belliston Jewelry is also hooking you up with a free dozen roses with the purchase of $129 or more in-store at Belliston, or you can go to belliston.com, bellistonjewelers.com. Check them out. Free dozen roses with a $129 purchase. Fellas, don't be the one on Valentine's Day who shows up empty-handed, please. And don't procrastinate any longer because you're halfway through your day already. By the time you get home from work, you got to have this thing figured out. Lots to get to here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Big thanks to Bill Riley for stopping by. Show Today and Every Day is brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Tires, wheels, and accessories for whatever you drive. If you're driving a Kia, they've got the tires, the wheels, and the accessories for that. Stop by your local Les Schwab today. The pros there will get the job done right the very first time. All right. NFL Scouting Combine is coming up. We gave you some of the names, the local names being attached, and a piece of news came out about Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, projected top 5 pick, and what he is expected to do at the Scouting Combine. I'll tell you why this report that he's a defensive back in the NFL is either a blatant lie or everybody's just wrong. We'll get to that in 3 minutes. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Eichel took a shot. Score! Second of the game for Brady Tkachuk.
Four Nations Challenge goal from Brady Tkachuk. He had 2 in the game. His brother Matthew also had 2 in the game. Ended up being 6-1. Team USA over Finland. A couple of Finnish players are, of course, also representatives of Utah Hockey Club. Olli Mata was able to assist on Finland's only goal. But a dominant performance from the Tkachuks and from Team USA in the NHL Four Nations face-off. That sound courtesy of ESPN. And, look, heading into NBA All-Star Weekend, there's a lot of conversation today, a lot of articles about, like, how you fix the All-Star problem. We've talked about this with the Pro Bowl. We've talked about this with the NBA All-Star Game. And I don't know what the ratings are going to come back like for the NHL, but it feels like they've injected a little bit of life into their break with this Four Nations thing. And they've built off that momentum by Gary Bettman, the commissioner, announcing that there's now going to be a World Cup of hockey. They're going to go on a 2-year cycle opposite the Olympics, and the NHL is going to comply, and we're going to have a hockey World Cup similar to the soccer World Cup. It's not going to be as universally loved and as universally embraced and as universally watched as the soccer World Cup, obviously, because you just can't expect Cameroon to be fielding a hockey World Cup team. So this is very much going to be a European and North American kind of thing. But it's awesome that they're trying out these ideas. And I think that anytime you give these players, especially players with kind of the overall vibe and ethos of what we've found NHL players to have, like anytime they get to put on the home sweater, and when I say home sweater, I mean the sweater for their actual home, the country of their birth or the country of their parents' heritage or whatever, people get really fired up. And, of course, the fan engagement has been spectacular. And the Four Nations is a nice little taste of this. And then we're going to get a Hockey World Cup. So, fantastic. It makes me a little jealous, James, that that soccer gets their World Cup, and now hockey's getting its World Cup. We're probably on our way to some version of this in basketball. Football, you can't ever really do it. You can't do a football world like an American football World Cup. Makes absolutely no sense because it's very much only an American thing.
Yeah, and technically they've renamed the FIBA World Championships to the World Cup in basketball, so technically they already have it, but it's really just the every 2 years World Championships. Has not quite gotten picked up as much steam as this hockey one probably will, and obviously the soccer one. But yeah, they do have some sort of version of it in basketball. But you're right, with football, you really can't unless flag football is a huge success in the Olympics coming up in LA, OC, and there's a flag football World Cup maybe. I don't know about that though.
Yeah, rugby's got its World Cup, which is a great event. Had an opportunity to go to at least one of those games. And then, you've got a Hockey World Cup coming. This matters, obviously, for the Utah Hockey Club because you've got an international roster that of NHL top talent players. A lot of these guys are going to be involved in the Hockey World Cup the same way that, you have a little bit of involvement here in the Four Nations situation. So the Finnish players will be called up to play for Finland in the World Cup probably. I can't imagine that Clayton Keller and Dylan Gunther and some of these rising young talents for Utah Hockey Club are not part of Team USA's plans in the long-term future or in the short-term future. So, Four Nations has been exciting already, only a couple of games in. Canada beat up Sweden 4-3 in an overtime goal, got that one done. And then Team USA just smashes Finland in the Four Nations round-robin play. So, shout out to Olli Mata being part of the losing effort there. But Team USA, wow, juggernaut. It is, as we talked about, and as we'll talk about when Brogan Houston joins us in about 20 minutes, it is likely to be USA versus Canada in that one. All right, what I wanted to talk about coming into this segment was the news that and news is probably too strong a term for it. Travis Hunter has been, for me, a fascinating guy to watch throughout his career. Will remain so at the NFL level. He's been designated as a defensive back for the NFL Scouting Combine. People are talking about it like it's not super significant. It doesn't mean a team is going to draft Travis Hunter and use him exactly how they want to use him. At the Combine, we've seen guys in the past run drills at two different positions. I don't know why they're making such a fuss about this with Travis Hunter. But I think it's the NFL trying to send a message like, hey, we're going to dictate what this guy does, at least for the stuff that we can control. I mean, Jason Fanaika, you remember this? Jason Fanaika, defensive lineman, defensive end specifically for the University of Utah, gets invited to the Scouting Combine, runs linebacker drills. Pita Talmoipenu, same thing. Defensive end, tweener body, mid-sized, runs linebacker drills. Starts doing some of that dropping into pass coverage, and you've all seen it. Chop your feet. The coach has the ball and he points it one way, and you got to shuffle that way, and then he switches it to the other side. He tells you to backpedal, and then we've all seen these drills. Those guys ran multiple position drills at the NFL Scouting Combine, having never played any meaningful snaps at that position in their college career. And you're telling me that we're not going to see this from a guy who started on both sides of the ball? They're really not going to let Travis Hunter run routes at the Scouting Combine, catch passes, and do the things that the wide receivers are doing? I mean, that's just, first of all, it's not going to end up being true. And if they tried to make it that way, it would make no sense.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is getting lost in all this is that it's the scouts who determine what they're going to be listed as, right? OC, it's not, they don't necessarily collaborate with the players, say, hey, what do you want us to list you as? The scouts, based on the tape that they've watched and what they project the player to be at the next level at this point in the process, say, we're going to list you at this position. Am I wrong? Am I right about that?
Yeah, the primary reason why Travis Hunter is such a massively appealing prospect as a defensive back is because, no offense, all of you wide receivers out there, receiver is just a much easier position to play. It is so prohibitively difficult to be a lockdown corner, to be a true elite defensive back. And he's displayed those skills. So that's what the NFL is excited about with Travis Hunter. Whoever drafts him is going to sit down with Travis and sit down with his agent and sit down with his mom or whoever else and say, all right, dude, anywhere from 10 to 50% of our offensive snaps, we're still going to have you play, but your job with us is to be a lockdown corner. And we don't know that that's possible for you to be a lockdown corner by playing both sides of the ball. And then it's going to be up to him to prove that he can do both. Because it is much, much easier in the NFL to find a wide receiver who can catch first downs and touchdowns for you than it is to find a corner who's a truly elite problem for other offenses, someone who can actually stop an opposing team's best or second best wide receiver from hurting you. And that's why the NFL and the scouts and everyone is saying, well, Travis, you're a defensive back, because they look at it and they say, what's harder to find, wide receivers or defensive backs? And unequivocally, elite defensive backs are much harder to find than quality receivers. And could he be like a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL? Maybe. I don't know. But he absolutely could be a top 5 corner in the NFL in short order, and that's why the emphasis is going to be placed on evaluating him at that position instead of on the offensive side of the ball.
When I bring up how the scouts kind of control and the teams kind of control all of that, what you're listed at the Combine, to say that Travis Hunter wants to be listed as both. He's been very vocal since he got into the collegiate ranks, and now that he's starting this draft process, he's continued to be vocal about how I want to play both at the highest level. So it's not anything that he's said, you know what, you guys are all. I'm hearing that I'm probably going to be a better DB in the NFL, so go ahead and list me as DB. It's completely out of his hands, and he, like you said, it's crazy to think that they won't have him do any wide receiver drills. They won't have him do any kind of route running or anything to just see what he could look like in that setting as a wide receiver, because they'd be crazy. No team that drafts him would be thinking the right way if they're not going to at least try him out maybe in special situations as a wide receiver, even if he's primarily going to be DB.
One thing that is going to be really interesting as this whole process progresses for Travis Hunter, and the Combine, I guess, will be like a minor glimpse of it, is you're absolutely right, James. Like, Travis has an idea about what Travis wants to do, and there's no reason why you should take away those opportunities from him, because he prepares himself as well as anyone else in college football, and I assume the same will be true in the pros. But in the past, he had a head coach who was also the general manager, who was also effectively the team owner, who was supportive of that and said, yeah, man, like, I'm invested in having you on the field as much as you want to be on the field. And I don't know if the team that drafts him has to be a team that is willing to treat him the way that Deion treated him. Or if the NFL, because the NFL is the ultimate boys club, listen to you're gonna do things my way now, because their record is above reproach. Their ratings are number one. Their revenue is number one. They are the biggest show in America, and so they, more than anyone else, get to say, hey, you're going to do it my way. And I don't know that that's the right way to handle somebody like Travis Hunter. I don't know that you should draft him if you're a team that has kind of that idea, like, you know what, we're going to use you the way we want to use you, or we're going to use you, I'm going to protect my investment I'm going to use the number 3 overall draft pick, or the number 2, or the number 5, or whatever he ends up going. I'm going to use this draft pick on you. I'm going to spend tens of millions of dollars on developing you, and I'm going to keep you in the building if I can, but you're going to do it my way. He's been able to do it his way because his way and Deion's way matched up, because Coach Prime was like the only dude that he could have played for in college football who had done that kind of thing himself, who had played both sides of the ball, who had played 2 pro sports, and who had at least some understanding of, like, the capacity that an athlete of that unique talent could actually handle. Like, he's going to get into an NFL building, and there's going to be a lot of people who say, you can't do both at the NFL level, dude. And he's going to say, no, I can. Let me show you. And in most situations, for most teams, the answer is going to be no. You're not going to, like, in limited reps, sure, but not anywhere near what we saw with you at Colorado. And, of course, I imagine Travis Hunter is going to push back on that a little bit, because he is one of one. He believes he's one of one. He keeps proving that he was one of one, at least at the college level, and every step he's taken in his career. Any doubt that – and I was among those, by the way, who doubted that he could play 100-plus, 115, 120 snaps a game and kind of sustain things, and he proved everyone wrong so far. So he's going to have to do that with his NFL franchise, or he's going to have to get drafted by a franchise that already has that idea, and that would have been the case if Coach Deion Sanders had been hired in the NFL, but he wasn't. So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow in this storyline for me. Like, a team that says long-term investment means we have to put you on a pitch count, versus a team that's going to draft him and say, sure, let's go. 50% of the offensive snaps and 100% of the defensive snaps. Let's see if you can handle it, kid.
I'm not betting against Travis Hunter being able to handle that kind of workload, even at the NFL level, because, as you said, he has shown he's defied the odds with that for a number of years now. And throughout his entire college experience, he defied those odds in a Power 5 and Power 4 conference, Pac-12 first, and then the Big 12. Like, I'm not betting against him being able to handle that kind of workload, and maybe convincing his coaches and whatever team drafts him to allow him to do that, it does feel like it's unlikely. But I'm certainly not betting against it.
ESPN 792 FM welcoming Earth, Wind, and Fire to the Maverick Center June 16th. Tickets are on sale right now. Spence Checketts will be giving away a pair of tickets every day this week on the drive. So he's on remote today as well, but he'll be giving away Earth, Wind, and Fire ticket. We're on remote at Kia, Wasatch Front Kia, 770 West Riverdale Road. They've got incredible deals going on the Kia K5 leases, the Kia K4, the Sportage, the Sorrento. Something for every family, every individual, every size, every need on the vehicle front here at Wasatch Front Kia. Swing by, take a test drive, tell them OC sent you. Stop by the table. We're on broadcast, and I'll give you some Braza gift certificates. Well, a Braza gift certificate, $20 off your next trip to Braza Grill. Come see me and say hello. Up next, we got a PGA Tour leaderboard update with James Peterson. We march towards hour number 2. We're going to talk a little Utah Hockey Club with the Deseret News Hockey Insider Brogan Houston. And then 12:30, we got Craig Smith, head coach of Your Runnin' Utes. Lots to get to on a Friday. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
at the top of the leaderboard right now at 4 under, and they're obviously very early here in day 2. There will be a cuts made at the end of this day, so some people will miss out on the weekend. We'll see who that is. Keep you updated throughout the day. In second is Seamus Power, the Irishman. He's at 3 under. He just started his day. And then a few notable names tied for 4th, Wyndham Clark and Scotty Scheffler among them at 2 under. And Michael Kim, it rounds out the guys at least tied in the top 10, tied for 7th at 1 under. How's Tony Finau doing? He has not teed off today. He ended the day yesterday at 4 over, OC, so not a great day for Tony. He's going to have some work to do once he tees off here to make the cut and play the weekend. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update brought to you by You Into Golf.
Well done, James Peterson. Again, You Into Golf has the new TaylorMade QI35 woods. Swing by, tell him OC sent you. Grab one today. All right. Utah Hockey Club. We'll talk about the situation going on in this Four Nations break. Only a couple of players active as part of the break representing Finland. What does that mean for everyone else? How do they get better while resting? Brogan Houston has some ideas. We'll talk to him next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Sean O'Connell Show coming at you live from Wasatch Front Kia today up on Riverdale Road in Ogden. Incredible deals on the Kia Sportage, the Kia Sorrento, the K4, the K5, the leases. Man, they really have great numbers on these leases. For $319 a month or less, you can get into a brand new Kia. Swing by, take a test drive. I'll give you $20 to Brasa Grill, the Brazilian steakhouse, if you come by and you say hello. All right, time to talk a little Utah Hockey Club. Brogan Houston, insider for the Deseret News, joins me for the first time on the Sean O'Connell Show. Brogan, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How about you, Sean?
Doing all right, man. Thanks for giving us some time today. All right, big picture for this Utah Hockey Club team before we get into some of the minutia with the Four Nations break and stuff. This is a team that has struggled to find consistency through the course of the year. They've gone on some win streaks. They've gone on some unexplainable losing streaks as well. Coming out of this break, what's going to be the key for this team to make a real push for that final wild card spot in the West?
I think the big key right now is just the fact that some of their injured players are expected to make their returns just after the break. So Logan Cooley should be back within the next game or two after the break, and same thing with Sean Dursey, who's been out almost the entire season. Those are both excellent hockey players. They're both the types of guys that can come in and change a team and take a team from the bubble of the playoffs where they are right now and help them make that push and get into the playoffs. And so I think if they're going to make the playoffs, it'll be because those two guys come back.
Who is the most important player on this team not named Clayton Keller?
Not named Clayton Keller. I got to go between Mikhail Sergachev and Karel Vejmelka. Both of those guys have come in and just blown expectations out of the water. Like, when Connor Ingram was out for about 2 months there, Karel Vejmelka hardly lost a game, and the ones that he did there were very, very close. Mikhail Sergachev, same kind of thing. Like, he came in with that trade with Tampa Bay over the summer, and nobody really knew exactly what to expect. They knew that he was a good defenseman, but he had never played as a number one defenseman before. He had always been behind two Hall of Famers in the Lightning roster there. And so now he's come in, he's proven that he is a number one defenseman, and not only that, he's also one of the better number one defensemen in the league. And so both of those guys have just come in and just done exactly what they were asked to do and more. It's just remarkable how well those two have done.
The Vejmelka thing has been really interesting because I think that when the season began, a lot of us anticipated that it would be Ingram, who was kind of like the 1A, and maybe Vejmelka would be 1B, or it would be like a true starter backup situation. And Vejmelka's play has elevated him. We were talking the other day with a couple of folks, that are dialed in on the team about how the prognosis looks in goal kind of over the long term, whether they keep both of these guys on the roster, whether Vejmelka is an appealing trade piece potentially. But to me, it feels like you can't trade the better of your goalies on this team. I wanted your thoughts on personnel movement, especially with respect to these goalkeepers.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. Vejmelka's trade value would be insane right now. He's probably, among goalies that could potentially be available at the deadline, he's probably the highest valued one, considering his contract and how well he's played this year. But like you said, it kind of depends on what they want to do going forward here. And so if they see Vejmelka as their goalie, for the next 5 years or so, and he's not signed past this year, so that's something that they would have to do. But if they know that he's the guy they want to go forward with, then he's more valuable to them than he is to anybody else, because that you can't make a playoff push without a good goalie. And so if that's something that they want to do, they got to keep him. They got to lock him up past next year. The cap just went up, and so they can afford to pay him however much money they need to keep him around. But I wonder if that's something that they're heavily considering right now.
On the opposite front, I guess, those are the guys trying to stop your opponents from scoring. The goal scoring for this club, Dylan Gunther has been phenomenal. He and Keller, I believe, are tied right now as the leading goal scorers for this team. that dynamic duo as goal scorers, not only for the rest of the push toward the playoffs this year, but both guys are obviously part of the long-term future for the franchise. What can they grow into as a goal-scoring pair in your mind?
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit right now. Dylan Guenther, he came back, and I don't know if you caught either of those two games, but he scored back-to-back overtime winners, both in the last minute of the game. They're tied as the goal scoring leaders, but Gunther's played 11 less games than Keller has, and he's 21 years old. He's not some seasoned veteran. He's a young kid still, and so yeah, like I said, the sky's the limit. I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Guenther eventually became like a 40 to 50 goal scorer, maybe a few years down the road. And I think Clayton Keller's in his prime right now. He's not going to be heads and shoulders above the level that he's at right now, but he's still all-star level right now. And those guys they've put the team on their back, and they're carrying them. And if they make the playoffs, then it will be largely because those two guys have had big impacts on this team.
We've seen a lot of line shuffling. A big part of that is because of the injuries, and as you're talking about, after the break, hopefully your roster is closer to full strength. When that happens, assuming it does happen, knock on wood, how much will we see Bear Torney kind of tweaking the pairings on defense, tweaking the lines, and pairing certain guys up and moving things around from a personnel standpoint to get the best shifts on the ice, really for the entire game?
That's a good question. Turney, he kind of locked onto his line combinations and defense pairings in the training camp in the preseason, and then he was really hesitant to change anything until at least halfway through the season. He kept specifically that third line with Lawson Krause, Matthias Michelli, and Nick Bugstad. He wanted those guys to work out together so badly. Like he kept them together, and it just didn't happen. And so after half a season, he eventually started scratching guys and started moving guys up and down the lineup, and it's worked to an extent. They've done better in the second half of the season than they did in the first half, and it's largely because of the success that individuals have had when they've moved around like that. And so I think this is a chance for Turney to kind of tinker with everything, like you said, and as guys are coming back, put guys in and take guys out, like he did when Guenther came back. He put Guenther into the lineup, and all of a sudden Lawson Krause wasn't playing that night. And then the next game it was Matthias Michelli that took a turn in the press box. And so I think, like you said, it's an opportunity for him to, put newly healthy guys in, take guys out, and just kind of play with everything and see what works best. I don't think there's, a set plan or like it has to be this way. I think the best way is always to be adjusting and trying to get the maximum, squeeze the maximum potential out of each guy,
On the big picture front, we are going all the way back to like when it was announced that this franchise was moving to Utah, and there were a few opportunities to kind of see what the outlook was going to be. You heard people talking about the identity of the team and what kind of hockey they want to play, and wanting to be a big physical team and dominant on the forecheck and all these things that I'm not so sure have really come to fruition just yet. And we were having a conversation earlier in the show about how sometimes you have to move your ideas and your philosophies around to fit your personnel. Are those two things matching up right now for the Utah Hockey Club? What they want the team identity to be, and the personnel that's on the ice being capable, I guess, of carrying out that identity and being as physical and as as aggressive as it seems like, verbally at least, the goal is?
Yeah, so I think I think Bill Armstrong, his kind of philosophy is to bring in guys that build the culture rather than necessarily the physicality or anything like that. And if they bring that as a secondary piece, that's awesome. If they're scorers or good defensemen or whatever, that's awesome. But he's brought in guys that he thinks they can build a culture around. Most of these guys that they signed in the offseason or that they traded for have won the Stanley Cup, some of them multiple times. Sergachev, he's only 26 years old, but he's won it twice. Ian Cole's won it twice. Kevin Stenlin won it last year. All these guys that they're bringing in. And so I think they're trying to build that winning culture. whether that's guys that will make big hits or guys that will score big goals or, block big shots, whatever it be. I think that's kind of what they tried to gear their team around this year. And so physicality, I mean, yeah, it's nice, but long gone are the days where you have guys in the lineup that are just there to fight. Even Liam O'Brien, like he fights pretty often, but his job is to play a fast-paced game and to bring energy to the team. And if that's by fighting or if that's by, making a big hit or scoring a goal or being in position to score a goal, he's done all those things, and that's exactly what
Apologies for the technical difficulties. Sean O'Connell Show continues here from Wasatch Front Kia up in Ogden. 770 West Riverdale Road, Kia, Wasatch Front Kia. Great deals right now on financing, on leases, the Kia K4, the K5, the Sorento, and, of course, the Sportage. $319 a month or less for all those vehicles I just mentioned on a 36-month lease. Pretty incredible deal right now going on at the number one Kia dealer along the Wasatch Front. I've also got some Braza Grill gift certificates. We're going to effort connecting with the head coach at the University of Utah basketball program, Craig Smith, kind enough to agree to join us on the show today, give us a little bit of time. We'll be getting him here in just a second as we work through some technical difficulties on the show. Appreciate everyone hanging in there with us. My apologies to Brogan Houston, who was kind enough to give us some time as well. Talk a little. Well, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We roll on a Friday. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And Craig Smith, kind enough to stick it out with us here, head coach at University of Utah basketball program. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Sean. How are you? There's always got to be something, right?
There's always something, Coach. Thanks for rolling with the punches with us. Valentine's Day, man.
Yeah, my wife reminded me this morning. I kind of blanked that out. Got the Jayhawks rolling in. I kind of forgot about the Valentine's Day thing. So after almost 30 years, she was understanding, though. So thank goodness I'm off the hook.
That's great. Well, that answers the question I was going to ask you, whether you're a hopeless romantic at heart or basketball takes up too much of your life.
Well, it's almost like it's almost like you live two lives. You have the life of the season, and then you have the life out of season. Now, life out of season has a whole different set of things with, recruiting travel and evaluations and official visits and all that. But it definitely kind of feels like it's like two different lives. So I always say, Valentine's Day. I did say Happy Valentine's Day right when I left this morning. So that was because I usually don't do that. So that was good. I might have to think of something on the way home tonight, to get. But she's not, we usually don't exchange gifts a whole lot. And then the other holiday that's just kind of like, really, it's a holiday, is Thanksgiving, right? Because, you're probably about, 5 to 7 games into the season. A lot of times you're playing your MTE around that time. And so when our kids were young, now our kids are a lot older now, but they were young, they would all go home back to Minnesota, and I was always a bachelor. So for Thanksgiving, for me over the years, it's usually been frozen pizza and a Mountain Dew. The Thanksgiving meal. So, but you just embrace it. You own it. Have some fun with it.
Coach, I can't get on board with that. I'm sorry. I cannot get on board with you having frozen pizza for Thanksgiving. But
yeah. But
right.
You just kind of you can't go wrong with a good Thanksgiving meal. I'll say that. Dark meat turkey, got to have a lot of mashed potatoes and gravy, and then whatever else, stuffing, of course. But stuffing can go a lot of ways. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's like, have a couple bites and move on. But that's just the reality of a basketball coach at that time of year.
All right. Well, bear with me as I continue the corniness on this Valentine's Day. But I put a poll question out for the listeners
about, all the things happening in college sports right now, whether it's affecting their love of the game, right? And look, I think players love playing in college now more than they ever did because they get paid a little bit, and life is pretty dang good. You still get to be the big man on campus, the big woman on campus, whatever. From a coaching standpoint, you've had this relationship with basketball for a very, very long time, and now it's not just your passion; it's also your job. How has basketball, your love of basketball, grown, changed, evolved? As you've gone through so many seasons, different stops, success everywhere you've been, et cetera. Your love of basketball, Coach, how much does it change?
It's as strong or stronger than ever. There's just different challenges depending on, your circumstance. Are you an assistant coach? Are you, been a director of operations, obviously been a head coach for 14 years. Every job is a little bit different. And then you got to be able to adjust with the times, right? And with like you just mentioned, NIL and the portal and everything. And so, I just try to take it day by day, try to really see the big picture, always remember your why. I always tell people, I do what I love to do. Now, is there stress? Is there a lot of hours? Of course there is. But you know what? That's life. That's how it is. And I'm so fortunate and blessed to be able to do what I do. I think it's really important to surround yourself with amazing people, whether it's your coaching staff or, certainly players, whatever it might be, administration, all the above. But I think it's really remember your why. Every year I try to, a couple times a year, go back and look at things that, documents that I've made or different things, that handouts that you've given the guys or things that you've done in preparation for jobs and, and think back to memories that you've had over the years, whether it was 30 years ago when you're first starting in this business, 25 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, all those kinds of things. And then just, be there for others, right? And pour yourself into to others. And it always comes back to remember your why and what's important to you and why did you get started in this business? And, for me, it was, I love people. It's so rewarding to see, an 18-year-old young man come in and graduate as a man, right, and move on. And now I'm at the age where I have former players that come in that, whether they're from University of Utah or from, South Dakota or Mayville State, and they come to shoot around or come to a game or come to a practice or come and visit in a quieter time and they have their kids with, we're at the point now, one of my former players, we're actually recruiting his son. And so that makes you think a little bit. But it's so awesome to have the connectivity and stay in touch with those guys, and watch them have success throughout their lives. And there's so much that goes into it. And we all know at the end of the day, it's a bottom line business and, you're judged on winning and losing. But I'm very proud of that. We've been able to cut down the nets everywhere we've been, not at Utah yet. But every other stop, we've cut down the nets, whether it's regular season championship or conference tournament championship, and 8 times in 10 years, before coming to Utah. But there's more to it, too. Our guys graduate, right? Our guys go on to have success, whether it's professionally or, on a personal level. And so there's so much that goes into it. And then the older you get, you start getting, the emails and the texts and thank you for the positive impact and those sorts of things. And we're not perfect. Nobody is. But the college landscape has really, really changed. But your why hasn't changed. You just got to keep pushing forward and adapt and adjust.
Craig Smith, Utah head basketball coach Craig Smith is my guest here.
Hey, I love
on the
football
Sean
too.
O'Connell
The NFL
show.
draft is coming up.
Yeah, well, we could get into some of that if you want, Coach. Let's talk though about the specifics with your team right now. The other night, your guys battled back so hard to tie it up in Cincinnati at 72, and just that game was so incredible up to that point. And look, not even just up to that point. It ended up being an incredible game overall. But at that juncture, it felt like some important changes happened. Cincinnati was able to pull down a couple of offensive rebounds and extend some possessions and then pull away and ultimately win. When you have a game like that one, what is the teaching moment? What is the film analysis? What is the thing that you get to take away from a game like that and say, we're not going to do this again, because there were so many positives to take away, ultimately not the result you wanted, though.
Yeah, it was a great game. 2 weeks ago we beat them at home. We out-rebounded them by, I think, 19 or something like that, 18 or 19. We did have 19 turnovers, so we self-corrected on that. We only had 10 turnovers. I think we had 4 in the first 3 minutes, and then we had 2 in the last 3.5 minutes. So that was the negative. But, that last road trip, obviously it sucks coming out 0-2. I thought we saw some really good things. This team, for whatever reason, 10 new players, 7 new coaches, there's like consistency. There's times we do things and I'm like, wow, we look so good. And then there's times like, 3 minutes later and it's like, what just happened? What are we doing right now? And so, you brought up the West Virginia game. We were down 12. I thought we had a great look to us. I thought our young guys specifically, we had every chance to win that game. We cut it to 5, called timeout. Jake Wally made a 3. All right, we forced a travel call that's not called, and they go down and make a 3. And that game, I just felt like guys that aren't used to scoring, we made them score. And to their credit, they made us pay. So guys that aren't used to beating the other team, they beat us. And then the Cincinnati game was just an unbelievable game. Like you said, it was a heck of a basketball game. I mean, we were down 6 at half. We were getting hurt on the boards, but I was confident because we weren't turning it over after the first 3 minutes. And usually that's a good sign for us. And so we came right out of the gates and just laid the wood to them. And I think we got up 3 and they called the timeout, 3 minutes in the first half or whatever. And then it was back and forth the whole way. And, Gabe Madsen got hot there first stretch. At one point he was 6 for 10 from the 3. And it's been a minute since, he kind of had that feeling. And then, he probably got a little overzealous. He even said it in the post-game press conference where he probably should have turned the corner more and been more aggressive. But at the same time, he did miss some wide open looks. I mean, wide open looks, down the stretch of that game. And sometimes that happens. And so that last 3 minutes, though, you hit it on the head. And we always just try to be very real and direct with our team, right? No fluff, just be brutally honest. And we came out, 72-72 with 3:52 to go out of the last media timeout. We had a great defensive possession. They missed a contested 3. I think it was Hunter really contested the shot. They missed. And, one of our guys didn't box out, went sprinting in for the ball, and we call it zombie rebounding. When teams shoot long, a 3, long shots equal long rebounds. So you have to understand that. And, KD went sprinting in, ball kind of went over his head. Hunter was leaking out. And that would have been probably Hunter's rebound, Hunter or KD. They get it. They make it 2. We come down. They have a good defensive possession. Our offensive possession was just okay. Gabe misses a 3. They come down. We have a great defensive possession again. Force a contest 3. Another long shot, right? We sprint in there. Ball goes over us. And then they stick a 3, about 15 seconds later. And then we come down. We're going to call timeout. And Hunter just kind of throws it away, and we foul. And just like that, on the snap of a finger, 3 possessions later, it's a 7-point game. And so, we have to learn from it. It's not the first time that, happened. There's one other game and you got to grow from that stuff. And I'm sure, our team was thinking about it. But those are tough lessons to learn. It's hard to win on the road. We tell our guys you got to win by 10 to win by 1. But we'll grow from it. We'll learn from it. I thought we had an excellent practice yesterday. For a very good Kansas Jayhawk team coming in here tomorrow night.
Coach, I want to talk Kansas, but you just recounted in incredible detail those possessions and how that sequence unfolded down the home stretch. Now, I know you do a lot of film study, but that is like, do you have a didactic memory? Do you have like a photographic memory for basketball?
Well, this is a 2-part question. One, I've rewatched that about 75 times.
Okay.
That might be a slight exaggeration, but I do have I have been accused of having a photographic memory. I have a very good memory. So you just
how often is that a blessing and how often is that a curse? Like because then you got to replay it all over.
I think it's certainly more of a blessing than a curse, but you're right. It tends to the good moments or the bad, but it's amazing, like during a game, how you can recall a play from, whoever it was, oh, they're going to run this, at this point, or I've seen them run this side out, with 5 seconds left or whatever it is. And of course you write that stuff down. Your staff is prepared for that. But I was always accused, even when I was really young, and I was a relatively fast runner. And so I could always remember my splits in my track and cross country. How can you remember every split? But it is what it is. But you just, you go through that stuff, and it's fun to, go back down memory lane, possession by possession with your former players when they come and visit. You remember that game? And you remember that? So it's always a good time doing that. But yeah, those, that game, gosh, when you got to find ways to win. And I'm sure you're seeing, and we're seeing, everybody, this Big 12, there's certainly some schools that have separated right towards the top. And then there's just, on any given night, it just feels like it's just a rock fight, and it's an absolute battle. And you just got to be able to make one more play or two more plays than the other team. And, just the other night, I think it was on a Wednesday night, my wife was watching, was it TCU in Oklahoma State? And oh my gosh, what a miracle shot that TCU made to win the game at home. And then Texas Tech and Arizona State double overtime, and it was just shot making after shot making after shot making. So it's a highly competitive game. The margins are very, very slim, and you just got to be really, really disciplined to what you're doing and find ways to win those games.
Coach, before I let you go, as you mentioned, it is the Jayhawks. It is Kansas coming into the Huntsman Center. That's a tough out in every situation. What's going to be the key for you and your team tomorrow?
Yeah, they're an excellent team. Obviously, historic program. They're really good. Hunter Dickinson is, averaging 17 and a half a game in conference play, 19 and a half a game in league play, 7'1", 265, 270. Really, really good touch. Can step out and make some threes. KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris have been around. They've won a ton of games for them. They're Gator guys. They play their tails off. You know what you're going to get every night. And then a guy named Zeke Mayo, who actually played at South Dakota State. Remember, about 8 years ago, I was the head coach at University of South Dakota. So I always my son is at North Dakota State playing there. So I kind of keep an eye. So former assistant head coach at South Dakota. So I keep an eye on the Summit League. And Zeke Mayo, we recruited for a little while, but he's from Lawrence. So it didn't take long once they offered for him to go there. But, as you would expect, they have a lot of talent. They can score it in a lot of different ways. They're a little bit untraditional. They're more of a traditional basketball team, but different than a lot of the Big 12 plays, where they actually play through their big guys. So we're going to have to do a great job in transition defense. Going to have to really rebound well. And then Harris is just, he's going to pick up full court, and we got to really do a good job taking care of the ball. So hopefully we'll have a great crowd tomorrow night against obviously a heck of a basketball team, a top 20 basketball team. And you don't get those opportunities every day where, a top 20 team is coming into your house. And so we're going to have to play great basketball, but our guys are excited for the challenge.
Coach, have a great game. Appreciate you joining me today, especially sticking with us through the technical difficulties. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, brother. I appreciate it, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Craig Smith, running Utes head basketball coach. Number 17, Kansas, at the Huntsman Center tomorrow. Pregame right here on ESPN 700 at 7:30. Tip-off at 8 on the home of the Utes. Might as well take this opportunity to get there and see a game in person. Text Utes to 33986 for a chance to win a pair of tickets. That's Utes to 33986, or go to UtahTickets.com. Fill up that Huntsman Center for a really fun matchup, Utah versus Kansas. All right, tank race update is coming. The Utah Jazz back in action last night on a back-to-back, once again against an LA team. This time they did what they were supposed to do. James Peterson's got your tank race update in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. Live from Kia, Wasatch from Kia up on Riverdale Road in Ogden. Come see us. Take advantage of the great prices they've got right now. Incredible leases, beautiful vehicles, big-time selection. And grab a Braza gift certificate from the broadcast table here. Back in 3 minutes on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.
All right, Utah Jazz against L.A. again. This time it was the Clippers, 120-116 loss in overtime. And that means it's time for a tank race update as the Utah Jazz, the Wizards, the Pelicans, the Hornets, they're all vying for the bottom. James Peterson, give us our update, please.
All right, so only 3 games yesterday, which of course was the final game before the All-Star break. We are at the All-Star break, so we won't have any more games for a week. So this is a good check-in point for the tank race. OC Jazz, of course, losing to the Clippers. We know that 120-116 in overtime. They tried their best to ruin things from the tank perspective, OC, but the Clippers just didn't let them. So good job, Clips, for pulling that one out.
Well done.
Well done, Clippers. We're big James Harden fans in that moment.
No, we're not. No.
Anyway, 120-116, thrilling game at the Delta Center last night. Overtime win for the Clippers. And the Pelicans, OC. The Pelicans got a win. They beat the Kings. So good job, New Orleans.
Well done. Well done, Pelicans.
Is there a kinship maybe because it used to be New Orleans Jazz, New Orleans Pelicans? Like, you know what? Let's throw a bone to our former team.
I don't think the Pelicans are trying to help the Jazz leapfrog them for a better draft pick, but we'll see.
Yeah, just a thought there. And then it was we almost went 3 for 3. OC. I thought we might after the Pelicans beat the Kings, but the T-Wolves went ahead and beat the Thunder by 15. Yesterday, snapped a 7-game win streak for Oklahoma City. So just when you need OKC to win, they decide to go ahead and lose. So there you go. That one not near as important as the top 2, though. You gotta look at yourself first, and then the secondary tank, if you will. Watching the T-Wolves to try to get a second lottery pick is just gravy. Next game. Like I said, not for another week. The Jazz are back in action against the aforementioned Thunder on the 21st. OKC, please go ahead and win that game for us. And then for the T-Wolves, their next game is next Friday at the Rockets. So that's going to be a tough one for Minnesota. That could be a good night for the tank for the Jazz. It's tank race standings. Wizards 9-45. They go into the All-Star break in the number 1 position. Pelicans with the win are 3.5 games back, 13-42. Helps the Jazz pull within a half a game of that second place spot in the tank race at 13-41, 4 games back of the Wizards. Hornets 13-39, 5 games back. Jazz just a game up in the tank race on Charlotte. That's something to watch. And the Raptors, like I said yesterday, OC, we might need to take them out of the standings here. We'll leave them in for now. They're now 7.5 games back at 17-38 of the Wizards, 4 games back of the second place Pelicans. Just a game and a half separates Pelicans, Jazz, and Hornets in spots 2 through 4. So it's getting tight here at the All-Star break. By the way, we're your home of NBA All-Star Weekend. We've got the Rising Stars Challenge. Keontae George participating in that, the only Jazz man participating in the Rising Stars Challenge, and that's tonight at 7. Remember, the winner of that Rising Stars Challenge is part of the new All-Star game. I'm starting to call it All-Star Tournament because that's really what it is. They will be the 4th team in that little round-robin thing. So maybe Keontae George can participate in the All-Star game if they win tonight.
So the Rising Stars Challenge, if you win it, right, your reward is that you get demolished by a team of actual NBA All-Stars who are only going to try when they face you, just to prove the point. But they're not going to try when they play against the other actual veteran All-Stars. They're only going to try when they face you because they don't want anyone saying that they're the ones who lost to the rookies.
Right, exactly. And also, if Keontae George's team wins, does he then and his teammates get to call themselves All-Stars? I think they should be able to, right?
Well, that's a real question, right? Because sometimes guys have something in their contracts, an All-Star nod gets them a little bonus. performance bonus, right?
Their agents are going to be arguing for that for sure.
Does it go on your Wikipedia page, one-time All-Star? Next time Gordy Chiesa comes in and talks about his list of Utah Jazz players who've ever made an All-Star appearance, does Keontae George now get that if he appears in this thing? This format is throwing everything for a loop, James.
And I hadn't even thought of that till just now when I said it on the air. That how the winner of the Rising Stars Challenge gets to compete in the All-Star game, air quotes. They should just rebrand it to All-Star Tournament because it's way too confusing to call it All-Star Game if they're going to continue this. But, we'll have that on Sunday as well, coverage starting at 5, tip-off at 6 of the first of the round-robin All-Star games. But tonight starts with the Rising Stars, and Keontae George could participate in an All-Star game if his team comes out on top tonight starting at 7.
That's your tank race update on the Sean O'Connell Show. All right, we're going to take a quick one here. Hour 3 begins with the Utah State head basketball coach, Jared Calhoun. We're going 2 head basketball coaches. What's the deal, Kevin Young? Huh? I know we're the home of the Utes, but you don't want to come on and talk about Yegor Demin and company? You think I'm not going to give any love to Richie Saunders, Kevin Young?
Are we
on a Friday?
But does that mean that we have to tell Jerem Jordan, sorry, we only do 1 red and blue? So when we do get Kevin Young, do we have to say, hey, Jerem, sorry, we're bumping you for KYU here?
I think Kevin Young has declared war against us, and I don't like it one bit. But Jared Calhoun is a friend of the program at this point, and we'll talk to him in 3 minutes. Big matchup this weekend for Utah State. They're number 2 in the conference. They take on number 1, New Mexico, looking for revenge there. We'll get to all that next on the Sean O'Connell Show. Coming at you live from Kia, Wasatch Front Kia, 770 Riverdale Road. Come see us. Test drive a new Kia. Check out the lease options and tell them OC sent you. It's Utah's number 1 sports talk, ESPN 700. weekend. New Mexico is a tough team, but right now you guys are playing some pretty good basketball. Safe to say that the old cliche of trying to round into form as tournament time approaches, is that a focus for you in practice right now?
Yeah, I think, I'm pretty pleased where we're at. It's been a great year. Guys are healthy. I think that's the most important thing. Pretty confident, I would say. Our guys are in a really, really good place. Certainly there's a lot of things you can get better at, but to put this group together back in April, to say you'd be 22-3 and, just a great group of guys to be around, very, very pleased with where we're at. No doubt about it.
Coach, it's Valentine's Day. How romantic are you about basketball at this point in your career and your relationship with the game?
Well, it's been my pride and joy pretty much my whole life. Since about the fourth grade, I kind of knew I wanted to coach college basketball. So, been very, very blessed to be at a lot of great different places, a lot of great relationships with players and coaches. And this time of year, I don't think there's anything better. There's great conference games. You're right around the corner from conference tournaments, and then right after that, you tip into March Madness. So, to me, for basketball fans, this is a great time.
The game, whether we like it or not, has changed pretty drastically in the last few years, the atmosphere of college sports. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but when you're talking with players about it and parents about it, on the recruiting trail, your fellow coaches, whatever, has it affected the love of the game in any way in your mind?
I would say for fans, I think, the disappointment of players transferring, the different rosters, juggling different rosters, I think it's really affected the fans quite a bit. I think there's no doubt about it. I think it certainly has affected coaches. It's never easy when players transfer and can play right away. You're seeing kids do it more and more often, even within the league. But it's like everything else, Sean. Over time, things change. And this sport has changed, and college football has been the same, right, and all of college athletics. So, to me, it's about, changing with the times. But one thing that has not changed is the success at Utah State and its men's basketball. But really the support, game in and night out, it's electric inside the Spectrum, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
All right, so Sunday, 2 p.m. on CBS, here in Utah at least, you will have this opportunity to get a little revenge from the last loss of the season, which was at home against a New Mexico team that is right now number one in the league. Really good program, really good team. Getting a win on the road in what will surely be a hostile environment. What's it going to take, Coach?
I think there's a few factors. Number one, we have to be really, really good in our defensive coverages, right? Donovan Dent is, probably right now the leading candidate for Conference Player of the Year. And his counterpart, Nelly Joseph Jr., the 6'10", 6'11" big kid, would be certainly on the first team All-League as well. So, got to have a great defense against a great offense. They can really, really score the ball. I think anytime you're on the road, there's two factors in basketball. It's rebounding, right? It's the effort plays, keeping shots alive on the offensive end, not letting them get easy buckets. And then it really comes down to, do you value the ball, right? Assist to turnover will be critical in the game as well.
Coach, you've got a couple of guys that can kind of flip back and forth, rotate back and forth as your leading scorer, your kind of player of the game. How early in a contest can you tell when you're on the bench? Can you tell whose night it's going to be between like a Martinez or a Falslev or one of the other major players?
Yeah, those two guys have been terrific all season long, right? Basketball, you're going to go through some shooting slumps. You're going to go through a lot of different things throughout the course of a season. Those two guys have been really, really good, whether it's driving the ball to the rim, whether it's making perimeter shots. The unique thing about our team is we've had a lot of guys step up. We've had multiple guys make game winners, whether it's Ian Martinez, Tucker Anderson, Mason Falslev. Recently, our last game, I thought our forwards were tremendous, Carson Templin and Alban Gadaretsky. This team is very, very deep. I think that's what makes our team fun to watch. They're very unselfish, one of the best passing teams in the country. So each game has a life of its own. Each player when they come in the game need to try to impact winning, and sometimes it's different things. It could be scoring, it could be rebounding, defense, assists, whatever the case may be, whatever the game kind of shows we need. Our guys have a chance to do that night in and night out because we have a lot of players that play.
You just mentioned it, one of the best passing teams in the country, 7th nationally in assists per game at 18.5. Was that a point of emphasis from the very beginning with this crew in particular? Is that something you want to always be a signature of your teams?
Yeah, Sean, it's been really good the last probably 4 years. Just our offense, the way it moves, the freedom, the guys, that we've been able to recruit, their skill set, their willingness to pass the ball, to be efficient players. It's been a really good mix. But this team's been exceptionally well. Elite transition offensive team. We can really get out and run and shoot threes and get above the rim. I think the funny part is I don't think we've had very many complete games where we've been dominant on both sides. Last game against Colorado State was the best offense I've seen in a half with this group. So we have spurts, but we just got to keep getting better in practice and then, enjoying the process of getting better. You can't get bored with the simple things.
Jared Calhoun, Utah State head basketball coach, is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. His team, number 2 in the conference, takes on number 1 in the conference, New Mexico, on the road at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Coach, how do you improve in the rebounding portion of your game?
Yeah, we've done a better job the last few games, really stressing it in our film sessions, and the guys have really bought into it. I think we just got to do a better job as coaches to make them aware, reminders throughout the game. We got to crash, and I think guys will do it. It's been something that the last 2-3 games we've been pretty good at.
With only you got 6 regular season games left, and I know that it's a game at a time, but how much of an eye is there on the health, the minutes rotation, the fatigue, the whatever else, so that you are firing on all cylinders when it comes to tournament time?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a big part of our process, right? We have a kind of a sports scientist guy on our staff. That's kind of what he does. He tracks their workloads, whether it's at practice throughout the game. We meet every week on it, and he makes suggestions, and we really have a science to it. So, yeah, we've got to be very, very cognizant of that and do a good job with that down the stretch.
Is there any time in your schedule, Coach, to start looking at, the national landscape of college basketball and who else is going to be in March Madness, who's going to be in a tournament? Do you have to stay focused only on the Mountain West stuff for now?
I look at a few things. Really, I just study our measurements, where we're at, whether it's the net, whether it's Ken Palm, how we're playing on each side, where we can improve. And, I think if you start looking ahead, you kind of enjoy the process of being present. I don't have Twitter during the season. I don't have social media. I kind of lock in on my team and kind of block out any sort of distractions. So, no, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what people are projecting. And, because at the end of the day, you're a couple games away from being out of the tournament. So, you got to be very present with your team.
Not even a burner account, Coach? Not even like a Finsta, as the kids call it?
You know what I found taking a break from it? I kind of feel it's kind of silly, really listening to other people's opinions on, things that they don't really know. They're not in your team meetings. They're not at your practices. Really what I used Twitter for was to steal plays and different actions from other coaches. So that's about all I've ever really used it for. I think there's a lot of bad if you just get yourself drowned in Twitter stuff.
I don't think anyone, living in the sports media world, it's like we rely pretty heavily on it, and it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't relationship, I think, for me.
You should try it. 24 hours, no Twitter. See how you feel after it.
I can tell you I'll feel a lot better and maybe only slightly less informed. But that's
yeah.
Well, Coach, I can't tell you how much I appreciate. I know how busy you are. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking some time with us on a Friday. Good luck this weekend against a very good New Mexico team. It's been fun to watch the Utah State success continue, and I know you're the biggest part of it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and we appreciate all your support.
Jared Calhoun, Utah State basketball head coach as his team prepares to try and avenge that loss. They've only lost 3 times this year. This is a really good team, 22-3 so far on the season. They've got the road trip to New Mexico, San Jose State, San Diego State, Boise State, Colorado State, Air Force. You know what I love right now about Mountain West Conference basketball is these are matchups and these are teams that you know that you're familiar with. The Mountain West has not been decimated, destroyed, scattered to the wind, reorganized to the same level that the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, and everyone else has. The Mountain West still looks like the conference that we watched for the most part, even when Utah and BYU were part of it, but certainly for as long as Utah State has been involved. And so these matchups, this Utah State versus New Mexico matchup, that's something that you anticipate, you look forward to. You have some idea of what it's going to look like, and it's not this strange foreign novel sort of thing that college basketball has turned into on most fronts with the realignment of all the historic conferences.
Yeah, that's what's great about a lot of the Group of 5 OC and Mountain West. Certainly, one that we follow closely around here because of the regional proximity and the Aggies being a part of it. But that's what's great about that is that they look the same. They're familiar, and you wish that they were at a higher level in football in particular, so that they meant a little bit more nationally, but regionally, it still means a ton, and you got that great familiar feel. Now that's going to change because a lot of them are going Pac-12 in a few years, well, as we talk about that, OC.
Well, but the funny thing about that is we're just going to call it something different, but it's going to be a Mountain West Conference, right? with Washington State and Oregon State tacked onto it. So, is Utah State? We reserve the right over the almost month of basketball left in the regular season and certainly tournament time. We reserve the right to change opinions here, James. But is Utah State the state of Utah's best hope for a deep tournament run this year?
I still hold out some hope for BYU just because they do have great talent to be that team. OC, I hold out some hope for Yegor Demon to show us a little bit more as a shooter as we get to tournament time. Cannon Catchings, one of their other highly lauded freshmen, to get some more consistency too. They've got a lot of talent down in Provo, and they're going through the old cliche, the crucible of the Big 12. It's not the best conference in college basketball this year, like it has been in the recent past. SEC is by far the best, but that's not because the Big 12 is that much worse as a conference. It's because the SEC has gotten that much better this year in basketball. So it's still a really tough test, and I got to think that that's going to count for something for a team that has the amount of young talent that BYU has come tournament time, that the combination of that talent starting to come together and get some more consistency and develop at a higher level. And also just the fact that they've had one of the toughest tests in college basketball going through a Big 12 conference schedule. I got to think that that's going to help them, not hurt them at tournament time. But Utah State there's a great argument that they're the best team in the state in men's college basketball. It'd be cool if we could see Utah State and BYU face off before the tournament to get that decided on the court. But I think I might hedge BYU at this time, but no disrespect to what they're doing in Logan with the Aggies are certainly capable of going on a deeper run than the Cougars, and they're right now they look like a safer tournament bet than the Cougars do. So
there's been more consistency. They do need to rebound a lot better, though. We touched on that with Coach Calhoun, and again, always appreciate these guys giving us their time during a season because it's a pretty demanding schedule. But they are 7th in the country in assists per game. They're moving the ball really well. They shoot fine. they're pretty bad in rebounding. They're like 240th in the country in rebounding. This is a team that has got to crash the boards better. It's been a point of emphasis, as you mentioned, in practice. They have the athletes to do it. And as we've talked with Gordy and we've talked with all of our basketball experts, rebounding is one of those things that obviously you got to have the physical tools. But everyone playing college basketball these days has the physical tools. Rebounding is kind of like a mental. You got to make the decision. You got to decide it matters to you and play like it matters to you. It is a want-to kind of stat in a lot of ways. Sure, other people are more equipped. Sure, some people with incredible wingspans, and like there's the sort of the Dennis Rodman type freak that can read the angles of the ball before it even touches the rim. But you got to have an understanding of it, and that's something that this team is going to really need to focus on in these last 5-6 games of the regular season if they want to win a Mountain West Conference tournament and if they want to maximize their potential in the postseason in March Madness, especially, on the defensive end. You cannot give up offensive rebounds to an opponent, as we saw that killed Utah the other night against Cincinnati. And it's going to kill them against the Kansas team that has guys built to rebound. Kansas has real bigs. Like, if you're not dialed in on your positioning, your box outs, on reading those angles and knowing that when you're shooting, the guy's shooting from deep, the rebound might be deep, like Coach told us earlier on the show. Like, you gotta give yourself more opportunities, and more importantly, probably, you got to take away second chance and third chance opportunities from good teams. And for Utah State, they're matching up with good teams this weekend. Utah's matching up with a really good team this weekend, and the Aggies will be facing good teams in the postseason as well. So rebounding cannot be a liability for you if you want to have a hope of continuing. Now, I say that even as they built 22 wins this year, despite performing below standard in the rebounding category. Feels like it's different in postseason basketball, though.
For sure. And as you're talking about and hearing Coach Calhoun talk about how that's one of the weaknesses that they need to improve before tournament time, and certainly going up against right now the best team in their conference, New Mexico, on the road, it made me think, man, do they miss Great Osibor right now as a rebounder? He was not only their best player last year, OC, and one of the best players in the mid-major conferences last year in all of the nation, in all of college basketball. He was also probably their best rebounder. So that's been a big absence for them in a couple ways. But it's just crazy that this is the fourth coach in the last 6 years, fifth in the last 7, whatever it is. And we're still talking about Utah State as perhaps the best team in the state in men's college basketball, and with the chance to win a game or two in the tournament, even after they did a remarkable job of retaining a lot of the talent they had last year, but they still lost their leading scorer and probably, like I said, probably their best rebounder in Great Osibor, and they just keep it rolling up in Logan somehow.
Yeah, it's been really, really impressive to see, and there's just something about the Spectrum. There's something about that community and the way it rallies around basketball very specifically. And obviously they've made good decisions when you lose a good coach, when you lose good talent in the transfer portal. They've made really good decisions in replacing those talents and finding someone that is going to thrive in an environment that I guess it's – look, is it unique in Logan? Absolutely. It's a true college town in the state of Utah, which is different than most of the other universities, at least the other D1 universities in town or in the state. And also, you've got kind of a unique task in – I'm trying to find a word different than unique. A challenging task in meeting the community where it's at and getting your athletes to understand – like that beyond the school itself, it's like a rural Utah / Idaho kind of set of people. And yet you fit in and you get rewarded with a full building, and the reciprocation of winning those games means the building's even more full and even louder and crazier And it's a unique atmosphere. It's awesome.
Yeah, one of those guys that's emerged this year is a name that Utah fans are familiar with, Ian Martinez, who transferred out of Utah a few years ago and has stuck up in Logan, and to the point where he was kind of a really athletic role player who wasn't that polished of a shooter at Utah. And he kind of remained that his first couple of years in Logan, and now he's their leading scorer, OC. So it's a really cool story to see the former Runnin' Ute thrive up in Logan and Ian Martinez. And speaking of the Runnin' Utes, I feel like the best way for them to beat Kansas, OC, is for Craig Smith to convince them that that team wearing blue across from them tomorrow is BYU. Because the last two times they've played BYU at home, they've played better than they've ever played. They've ever played in just about any other game in the last two seasons. So if he can convince them, hey, that team in blue, that's not Kansas nationally ranked. That's BYU. That's our rival. I think maybe Utah has a chance to win tomorrow.
I love hearing that. By the way, you know how we're always talking about like the basketball players that could be good football players? Mason Falslev, who's been really incredible for this Utah State Aggies team. Mason Falslev we thought was going to be a star wide receiver at the University of Utah. And
I think a basketball player too, right? He would have been a two-sport athlete.
Instead, he's 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists a game, shooting 50% from the field for the Utah State Aggies in a 22-win season. So, like, that's a guy. He chose to focus on basketball. I don't know. I hope he has some pro prospects on the basketball front, but he's elite, man. It would have been fun to watch his college football career if it had played out that way.
Maybe we get a Caleb Lohner situation where when he's done with his basketball eligibility, he comes and plays a season of football at the U. I don't know.
Well, he's only a sophomore eligibility-wise, right? Which is crazy because, I mean, I guess he served – did he serve a mission? 2019 is when he signed a letter of intent to the University of Utah football.
He must have served a mission then, because it feels like
he
should be farther into his eligibility.
Anyway, Mason Falslev, two-sport athlete, but focusing on the basketball front. And I on this show especially, I'm always just like, yeah, but Big Foose, he should be playing football instead. Basketball coaches probably hate hearing me say stuff like that. Mason Falslev, yeah, you're the one too. Play football instead. Come back to Utah. All right. Airing of grievances is next. It's Valentine's Day, so, look, you might have some grievances associated with that. I'm mad right now at Tyreek Hill, James, and I'll tell you why next when I air my grievances. 877-353-0700. If you want to weigh in, you can also tell me your grievance at Real OC Sports. It's Utah's #1 sports dog, ESPN 700. Head into your Valentine's Day weekend with an unburdened soul. Air your grievances now on the Sean O'Connell Show. 877-353-0700. No grievance to air with Wasatch Front Kia. They've been great to us today. They've got really incredible deals going on right now. The Kia K5 lease for $269 a month for 36 months. 2.9% APR financing as well is available here. $219 a month on the K4. $279 a month on the Kia Sportage. That's the all-wheel drive LX. And the Sorento, the 2025 Kia Sorento. These things are incredible, actually. My neighbor just got one. Really, really awesome car. $319 a month for 36 months. 1.9% APR on the Sportage and on the Sorento. Come check them out at 770 Riverdale Road in Ogden. James Peterson, I'm going to let you go first if you have any grievances to air.
I do have a grievance, and it's very specific to my role. One of my duties as program director. I'm constantly looking at schedules for college football, basketball, whatever, all the games that we carry and that we want to talk about, and that brings me to a lot of our local schools' websites, athletics websites, and other schools' websites to look at the schedule. And here's what happens every time, OC. I'm looking at the schedule looking for when their next game is and who they're playing. And instead of, when you go to the page, instead of it showing you that or bringing you down to that next game, it takes you to the very beginning of the season on their schedule. Yep. So you have to spend some time scrolling from November 5th all the way down to now mid-February just to see what's next. And then by the time you get down there, sometimes I'm like, oh, are they on a win streak? Are they on some? Oh, yeah, that's on the website too. So I have to scroll all the way back up to see that stuff. Like, man, and it's not just Utah's one of the offenders, but it's not just Utah. BYU's is that way. Utah State's is that way. UVU, whoever you look up, you have to spend a lot of time scrolling instead of it just taking you to that one. Well, Google has a great way of doing it. You Google Utah men's basketball, and you Google BYU men's basketball, Utah State Aggies basketball, and guess what it shows you first? It shows you their next game, OC. And if you need to go back and if you're curious about what happened before, you can go more games and do some scrolling, but you don't have to do the scrolling to see their next game. So my grievance is with college athletics websites. Can we make it so that we don't have to do as much scrolling, please?
Yes. James has a grievance against scrolling, which is very specific. And I love it. The one grievance, a sub grievance against Google, because Google's not completely innocent in this either, OC. They don't have the record when you Google a team. They don't show you, hey, this team's record. Like this is what the Utah's record is right now. So you have to, if you're just going to go by Google, and they don't show you like win streak stats or anything. So if you're trying to figure out how much they've won just from the Google plugin that they have, you have to go in and count the games. So like, can we just make it a little more convenient for those of us trying to keep track of things? Just a little more convenient. That's all I'm asking for. All right, I'm not going to argue against you. All right. Okay. I've got
no one can relate to mine though. I'm sure all our listeners are like, yeah, I've never had that problem, but thanks anyway.
All right, I'm going to air a grievance. Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia in general, gets plenty of grievances, all right? You deserve all of them. This one is on their championship parade. There's two specific things here that bother me about what I've seen from the Super Bowl parade happening in the city of brotherly love. First of all, I'm getting videos on my feed of every Eagle except for Britton Covey. I need Britton Covey coverage on the Super Bowl parade. All right? So grievance aired there.
Coverage.
But also this, James. Did you see what happened to Howie Roseman? The man who built the roster that won you a Super Bowl. Did you see what happened to him?
The disrespect.
He got hit in the forehead with a beer.
Yeah, the disrespect.
Like he has this crescent-shaped abrasion/cut on his forehead that was actually bleeding a little bit because Philadelphia fans are such animals that they can't even refrain from throwing beers at the general manager of the team who built the best roster in football and is the reason that you are having a Super Bowl parade today. Please, people. Grievance.
Yeah, like, have some respect for the guys, for the reason why you're celebrating here. But here's the thing. With Philly fans, you can never really tell if they're happy when they're celebrating or if they're upset because they're destroying everything, too.
That's what they do. It's not great. It's not a good situation in Philadelphia, and especially because I don't get to see – I just want to see Britton Covey's reaction to everyone else being a complete lunatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not going to be a lunatic.
No, but he's people watching for sure. And you know what? He's people watching mostly, but he's also going out of his way to try to show some of that great leadership that he has and be like, hey, there's a better way, guys. We don't have to break the street polls when we're happy about the team winning.
Landon Dickerson at the parade is cursing so much that they're running out of time. They're running out of the bleep buttons because you only have 30 seconds of delay. That's funny. Philadelphia, enjoy your thing, but don't throw beer cans at your general manager.
I think there's a TV and or radio producer that has a grievance against Landon Dickerson and is cursing.
Fair.
Like, hey, my finger's getting tired hitting the dub button here and the bleep button. I have another traffic grievance. It's a typical thing for me, I know.
Okay.
At intersections, you see that. I'm sure you see this a lot too, OC. Drivers who get stuck in the middle of an intersection when the light's red, but they went out in the intersection when it's green. I mean, people, just because it's green doesn't mean you always can go. If the traffic is so backed up, you can't even get to the other light, you need to stay at the other side of the intersection, even if it's green. The reason why? Because if you do that, you're in the way of other people who have places to go to.
Do you think people just don't have proper depth perception, or they think they're actually going to be able to get through?
I think it's an increased number of drivers who don't realize that they're not allowed to be stuck in the middle of an intersection. That's technically illegal. That's technically a traffic violation. Doesn't get enforced, but you're not supposed to block an intersection like that. You're supposed to, even though it's green, you go and we're conditioned. Hey, green, I'm entitled to hit the gas here. You sometimes have to stay on your brake because it's not always legal to go when it's green. Anyway, my PSA is over.
Okay, I like that. I have a grievance to air with Tyreek Hill and Noah Lyles.
I'm ready for it.
Are you familiar with the trash talk that's been going back and forth between the gold medal sprinter and the man they call Cheetah, who is widely regarded as the fastest player in the NFL? Have you seen this?
Yeah, and he seems to think he's the fastest man alive.
So
not
Tyreek Hill
necessarily true.
Tyreek Hill believes that he is faster than Noah Lyles and could beat Noah Lyles in a race, and Noah Lyles is the man who gets to claim that status as fastest man on the planet because he's an Olympic gold medalist in the 100-meter. And so he's like, okay, let's race then. Now, they've been jawing back and forth, and I'm airing a grievance with both of them that they're getting my hopes up because they told, I guess it was People magazine, that sometime this summer they're going to race, that they're actually going to do a foot race, and it's going to be somewhere between 40 yards and 100 meters. So, you would assume maybe they would do the indoor track thing and do a 60 maybe. And I want to see it. I desperately want to see it. It wasn't so long ago that we saw DK Metcalf going up against world-class sprinters, and while he accounted well for himself by not getting run off the track, it was evidence that, hey, when you're a professional runner and that's all you do is run and work on your starts and things like that, you're going to be faster than even really fast NFL players. But, again, that was a 240-pound DK Metcalf, who's not the fastest man in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, he may very well be. And if it's not him, it's, I don't know, maybe Worthy There's a very, very short list of guys who belong on this. Hey, could you beat Noah Lyles in a not? You're not going to beat him in 100. Okay, that's the man's craft. Could you beat him in a 40? I still think the answer is probably no. But could you? Let's see. And now I'm getting my hopes up, James, that it's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I want to see it too. Who do you think? Do you think that's a streaming service like Netflix that picks that up if and when it happens, or do you think that's more like TNT where we've seen like the golf head-to-heads and the match, what they've called it, with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and whatnot? Do you think it's going to be more of a traditional thing with TNT, maybe Max, or do you think a place like Netflix probably picks that up if it happens?
Here's what I want to happen, okay? Because I'll have a grievance to air with whoever ends up broadcasting it, because it'll be a 2-hour show for a 6-second or 4-second or 5-second run. And
True.
So that will bother me.
It'll be like horse racing.
What needs to happen is they just need to roll out there, get some high quality cameras, and then put it on YouTube and be like, who won? But you're right, they'll frame a whole broadcast around it, and it'll be obnoxious, and there'll be no preliminary. It'll just be the main event, waiting, everybody talking about it. They'll bring Stephen A. Smith in, pretending that he knows something about speed, and it'll drive me insane.
We're talking about the fastest man alive.
Yes, it'll be something crazy.
The cheetah.
Like all right, this one coming from 1605. Grievance to air, and I saw this. I'm actually glad that they brought this to my attention. Reminded me of this. Okay, grievance with Alabama lawmakers trying to give the Crimson Tide an even bigger advantage in recruiting by making NIL tax-free. Have you seen this, James? Alabama lawmakers are proposing to make NIL earnings tax-exempt so that players don't have to pay taxes on NIL earnings and are more likely to come to a place like Alabama. Texas already has no state income tax, right? Tennessee, Florida, they've got no state income tax. So that has been perceived by Alabama and Georgia, by the way. Georgia's also trying this. Alabama and Georgia as a recruiting advantage. So now they're lawmakers, because even on Capitol Hill in those states, they care enough about college football to potentially change things in the tax code for their state to try and make sure that their college football teams are the best. Grievance is aired because maybe the grievance should be aired with Utah lawmakers for not proposing the same thing. Give
do
BYU
we have
and Utah and Utah State this advantage?
Do we have it backwards? Should we be mad at the people in our own backyard here up on Capitol Hill, or should we be mad at them for trying to make it even easier?
Can't you just stop being greedy,
yeah.
Alabama, SEC people? You're already getting the best players.
Also,
okay,
education's what's most important to everyone involved, right? OC, why would we deprive them of the education of learning how to do taxes?
Well, James.
It's not, is it?
It might not be the most important thing. It might be kind of important, but it's not the most important thing.
Oh, my bad. I thought an institution of what they say higher education. I thought that education was actually the highest priority.
It's not their highest priority. I'm sorry, it's not. But yeah, Alabama and Georgia proposing NIL earnings be tax exempt, so that they can recruit players without having to worry about the players. If it comes down to, should I go to Florida or Texas where I can keep more of my NIL money, or should I go to Alabama or Georgia and we'll be on the same playing field? That is ridiculous. Can you imagine if you're a regular, mom or dad of 3, just grinding away, trying to make enough money to provide for your children? You're cutting that tax check. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of giving a certain percentage of my income, and then they're this announcement comes in your newspaper, scrolls across your feed, just hey, just so you know, the new quarterback at Alabama who's making $3 million in NIL money, that's going to be tax-free, but you, who's working for UPS, you're still going to pay full taxes.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
It'll happen, though.
Probably will.
Priorities are where they are in the South, in the Deep South, when it comes to college football. Love it. All right, Noah Lyles, Tyreek Hill, don't get my hopes up, all right? I'm going to air another grievance with you if you get him up and then you cancel this event.
Do you remember when it might have been right after former Titans star Chris Johnson had his 2,000-yard season, or in the middle of his 2,000-yard season, and then Celtics guard Rajon Rondo had challenged him to a sprint race? Do you remember that? Like, it's now a long time ago, but it made me think, like, that seems like it's much more even playing field. Certainly not going to get as much build up as the fastest man in the world, Olympic track athlete like Noah Lyles going against maybe the fastest guy in the NFL. But like, let's get maybe the fastest guy in the NFL versus someone who thinks they're the fastest guy in the NBA. Maybe that's a better matchup there.
They did that one that race. It's like old grainy footage of Wayne Gretzky racing a bunch of other people.
Oh, really?
And he just smokes everybody. Like I think they ran 100, and he was like 10 strides ahead of the next nearest guy. And it was like Wayne Gretzky and I don't know, Sugar Ray Leonard or somebody. It was a weird mix of athletes, but he was by far the fastest one. I just tried to look up Noah Lyles' 40-yard dash splits, and all I get is news about this potential race. A 50-yard race between these two, I would tune in to watch, all right?
I think that could be close. The shorter the distance, the closer it'll be. Like, the closer, obviously, Tyreek Hill will keep it, right?
Yeah.
The longer it is, Noah Lyles, it's going to be a blowout.
All right. That's the airing of grievances today. We're going to wrap things up from Wasatch Front Kia on the other side. A Valentine's Day edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. I'll update you on the polls. We'll give you a leaderboard update in the PGA and send things off to the drive with Spence Checketts. You're listening to Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700. 2 tickets to Hardy, May 29th, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater at 877-353-0700. If you could tell me which of the Tkachuk brothers scored 2 goals in last night's Four Nations Challenge. Hint, hint, wink, wink. This is an easy one. 877-353-0700. Talked about that earlier on the show as the NHL and the Utah Hockey Club are in their break. Time now for a PGA Tour leaderboard update from the Genesis Invitational, brought to you by Uinta Golf. The new Ping G440 driver delivers faster ball speeds along with Ping's game-changing forgiveness. G440 irons are designed for more distance and control and are available at Uinta Golf. What does the leaderboard look like, James Peterson?
Genesis Invitational at Torrey Pines in was that San Diego area, right? The Southern California. Patrick Rogers and Davis Thompson at the top of the leaderboard, tied for first at 5 under. Scotty Scheffler right on their heels at 4 under. They're just about through. All three of them are just about through the front 9 of their second rounds here. Denny McCarthy, who entered the day as a leader, has dropped back to 2 shots off the lead at 3 under. Wyndham Clark and Rory McIlroy are tied for 6 at 2 under. And where's Tony Finau? He's actually having a pretty good day, pretty good bounce back day. OC, he's 2 under for the day. Still 2 over for the tournament. That's only 7 shots off the lead. That's a decent spot to be in. He's tied for 33rd, but 7 shots off the lead. Decent spot to be in. About six holes in on his second round here on a Friday. That's your PGA Tour leaderboard update, brought to you by Uinta Golf.
Final segment of the show is brought to you by Advanced Window Products. If you need new windows, buy them direct from the only local manufacturer, Advanced Window Products. Installation and sales and warranty, it's all covered in-house with no markups by the middleman. $2,500 off 10 windows or more at advancedwindows.com. We've had a blast here at Wasatch Front Kia. They've got great rates going on the leases. They've got incredible financing options. Check out the Sportage, the Sorrento, the K5, the K4. They've got the Carnival minivan, which is absolutely sick. Not really, doesn't even look that much like a minivan. It's just kind of like a lower to the ground SUV. And then my family, we drive a Kia Telluride. It's the coolest car I've ever owned. So they've got all those on the lot. I'm looking out the window right now. They've got every single one of those on the lot right now at Wasatch Front Kia. 770 West Riverdale Road up in Ogden. When you come by, tell them that OC sent you. Maybe bring your Valentine in for a test drive or 2. Spence Checketts is next. He'll be live at Motorsportsland from 2 to 6. That's 4001 State Street in Mill Creek. Motorsportsland helps you get away, I think is the way that they say it. So that's Spence Checketts next. James Peterson, have a great weekend. Great job this week.
Thank you, boss. I appreciate that. You have a great Valentine's Day, and we'll try to have we'll plan on having a great one as well at the Peterson household. Also, long weekend, President's Day on Monday. We're off, so we'll be back on Tuesday.
Oh yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday. Monday is President's Day, so celebrate your favorite president, and maybe do so by coming to Wasatch Front Kia up in Ogden to test drive one of the great Kia vehicles and take advantage of the incredible financing options and the super affordable lease options right now. We're out. Spence Checketts is next for Motorsportsland. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.